call to order the regular meeting of the Richmond Township Board of Trustees. It's Wednesday, August 12, 2020 at 7:02 p.m. Would everyone please stand and join me in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please call the roll.
Sure. Krista Rose.
Here.
Debbie LaFontaine. Here. Cindy Ringham.
Here.
Bob Zolta.
Here.
Vern Coleman.
Here.
Next item on the agenda is the presentation of agenda. Does anyone have any changes or amendments that they would like to see? Hearing none, the agenda will stand as presented. So the next item on the agenda could take a little while. This is public comment on agenda items only. We will go ahead and refer to the people that are in here, and then we're going to have to switch. So if someone is in here that would like to make a comment on agenda items, please do so.
My name's Steve Murphy. I want to talk about the land purchase. I asked several times for a FOIA, and they said there was never any paperwork for it. According to this, you and your attorney and everybody's been working on it for a long time. I asked 3 members of the board, and he said there's nothing going on, and I find this here. I also find you would pay $60,000 for 7 acres of ground, and I have no clue how you're going to pay for it. Nothing in here how we're going to pay for it, just that we're going to buy it. And I see Mr. Jeff was on something about some replacing some lights. There's one line item I see: no permit fees or inspections included in this quote. You can't. I'm sure you got to pull a permit, and it's got to be inspected if they're going to be doing any electrical work. And you got $60,000 spent for land, we could spend it for fire and have a better fire contractor than we have fire people. That's fine. I'm very upset with this, very upset. Especially you guys aren't open with it. You're supposed to be open with your meetings. You haven't opened at all. I kept asking and asking. You never want to talk about it. You bring it out like this.
Right.
Evening, everyone. Regarding the land purchase, the one thing that they're not making anymore is land. If you had a chance to buy land that is connected to your parcel of land here for a reasonable amount of money, buy it. You get a chance to buy more, buy it. This has been in the budget. I looked tonight. It's currently in this budget. It was in the last budget. So it's not like it's some trumped up thing that you came up with a month ago. It's in the budget. You planned for it. It's a good expenditure. Get a chance to buy one. Thank you.
Anyone else have any public comment at this time before I start switching out and bringing in some people that might want to talk on the drain? Sir, did you have anything you'd like to add? Ma'am, do you have anything? Okay, then I'm going to get some of them, and do you want to, Lori, bring some of them in? We're going to have to switch probably just a couple at a time. Oh, I'll have to worry. And he said he was going to talk.
Okay, whenever.
Okay, so thank you everybody for making this easier. With the situation, we couldn't fit y'all in, and I think this is just a great idea to have us all out here. and we get to come up and get some fresh air in that, so that's good too. So I know that Ken was talking to everybody here about kind of how it works. If you want to start again, if you want to kind of go from where you were.
Okay.
Because you did come out and explain it to us as a board one time, and then we can hear comments from whomever wants to talk, okay?
All right. I'm Ken Goyke from Macomb County Public Works Office. I've been working for Candace for the last couple of years, since I'm not your state representative any longer. But the reason she picked up on me because I have over 40 years in the excavating business and did a lot of drain work. But while I was in office, we changed the law so that on all the county drains, we didn't have to pull permits from the state, so we can actually do a blanket permit across the whole county on what our county drains are. In the township office, there is a map up on the wall. I dropped it off a while back, so if anybody has, they can go up there and look and see if the drain you're on is actually a county drain, and then it would be underneath our authority. I kind of put everybody up to speed that we work underneath Public Act 40 of 1956, which gives our department the authority to work on those drains and the easement that's in it. So by working on the drain, we do not own the property. You do own the property, but we have you can't do anything on that property unless you get a license to use agreement for putting a culvert in, a bridge on top of it, or wanting to do anything within that drain. The reason being is that all the people signed off on that easement when that at one point when that drainage district was established. So what that did was make sure that nobody's going to get flooded upstream, downstream, so that everything can be maintained, because everybody's always downstream of somebody else until it gets to the lake. So that's why the law works the way it is, so that we can take care of all the drainage all the way on through. I was starting to say most of the drains are called Chapter 4s and Chapter 8s that we don't have any restrictions on per se out of our department. Chapter 21s are inter-county drains that would go in between Macomb County and St. Clair County, and we would have to work with the jurisdiction in St. Clair County and meet with there's actually a board put together with our county commissioners that are on that board to do any work on them boards. So earlier I said that the only time any money goes into it is when the drains were established and people were petitioned to do that, and you still have the right to petition to do that to this day. But in lieu of doing that in our county, Candace Miller decided, she talked to the commissioners and she got $100,000 of, it's called the 50-50 grant money. So the township has to come up with 50%, and then the county has that other 50% for the 100. So we're going to be doing $200,000 worth of work throughout the whole county, and we're trying to spread it out to each one of the townships within the county. So we haven't utilized that here in Richmond Township yet, and I've talked to some of the board members and some of you citizens here about we're doing some work on it. What we deem to be most critical right now is the log drain. It is really, really backed up. And what we're doing is we're taking drone footage of it ahead of time, just down in the drain, and then we'll take an after shot. And that way you can go on the website if you want, and it just focuses on the drain itself, on the improvements. And you can go on the county website and see how many drains that we've done, and you can see the outcomes and how much block they are. So on the log drain, what we're going to do is start right at our, right up here on School Section Road, and go southwest until the money runs out. I don't think we'll make it all the way. Was it Spencer Road? First and all, yeah.
It wouldn't make it.
No, we're gonna go. We'll get real easy up to Low Plank and then start going through that woods. What we first do is we go through with a pulverizer now and get rid of the small brush up in the bank that we're going to be working off of, and then we come in through with a smaller excavator and the guys with the chainsaws, and we cut the trees flush at the bottom, because we cannot take out the stumps for erosion purposes. The only tree stumps we can take out are the ones that are in the bottom. So while we grind that stuff up, most generally we put the logs up on the top, and if somebody's elderly or something, I'll have the guys cut them up into fireplace sizes if they ask me. If not, what we do is just throw the stuff up, up in the bank on the top, so that we clear it through. Once we get the debris all taken out of the drain, then we come through with the excavator and a ditch and bucket, and we're allowed to go back to the virgin grade. And what that means is anybody that runs a machine, you can tell all the dirt is like topsoil. It's a sediment dirt, and all the drains are way below the topsoil line. So when you dig a bucket out and you hit the virgin clay, you know that's the depth that you have to go. So we don't even have to use lasers anymore. Because them old boys back in the 1800s, they did a lot. They did good work with the the rods and the chains and the transit levels that they used back in that times. So we throw the spoils up on the top. We just kind of float it a little bit level, and we throw some seed back on it. We try to leave as many trees as possible, because what we found is the more shade in the drain, it's good for the aquatic life, but it also stops Phragmites from growing in it. Phragmites that's the things that look like cattails, but they don't have the hot dog on the top. They grow in sunlight, they go crazy. If anybody's interested, I have paperwork that shows you what chemicals you can use that are allowed by the state DEQ's office and stuff, but it's in the county truck. I'm on vacation now, so I don't have that stuff with me. So that's why I came. But anyways, so my understanding is that you guys might be doing up to $10,000, so that would get you $20,000 worth of work. Basically, we're about almost $1,000 a day with that man in the machine, just to give you an idea. So we basically got about 20, real close to 20 working days on a machine to get how far we're going. I usually, usually with 20 grand, I can almost always get a half mile. Very rarely I can get a full mile of that stuff that's as much debris that's in that drain right now. So I mean, the nicest part is right at school section where that homeowner's taking care of it there. We just have to dip the bottom, but shoot, we can almost do that for like $1 a foot. It's so simple, with the excavator comes in, flips it out, flattens it out, and then the guys just throw some seed on it. But when you get through all the debris and stuff where all the fence lines are bad, it's so. Any questions for me now?
So I guess, what,
Excuse me. Are you going to be working one side of the ditch?
Just one side.
what I'd like to do is if anyone has any comments, if you could, just because I know she's taping over here and I would like to get all the sound, the questions that someone that would watch this at home would want to see, if you could maybe come over and stand next to Mr. Goyke and ask the question or address the issue or address the issue to the board, whatever you're thinking, I would appreciate that.
The question was, are we going to work on both sides of the ditch bank? No, we are not. We only usually work on one side, and if there's dead stuff on the other side hanging into it, we try to grab it and pull it out so to keep that going out. I try to get most of the trees that I can tell are dead so that they don't fall in. Sometimes the guys slip up and don't get them, but that's, you know, and anybody on your property, you're perfectly legal to go into it. You just can't do any digging in the drain.
Do you know how long the drain is? You're talking you can only get less than a mile. How is that going to get you into the other side of Low Plank?
Oh yeah, I'm going to make that for sure. I'll be on the other side of Low Plank. When we first talked, Cindy was telling me about 5,000, so it's 10. I knew I'd get past there with that much money. So, but going back into the rest of the way, and then there's certain spots, you know, once you get out in woods and stuff, man, you can go like heck through there. You know, and then like you and I were talking earlier, Bruce, the guy that passed away doing it for 40 years, he already did alongside the road down there, so that should be in pretty good shape. But back again, when it cuts back into the field and it goes back around, because this winter I went and looked at that, it's pretty rough shape.
Yeah, I talked to Pat. McKernan's the owner of that.
Okay.
He's considering tiling that, so he's interested in cleaning that out too.
Yeah.
But we won't get that far, but maybe next year.
Yeah.
So you guys will do a match. We've got 10,000 now. What we did as a township, we started putting $5,000 a month per month, 5,000 a year in that account, and we've done it for 2 years. That's how we got the 10. So next year we'll only have 5 again. Can a landowner put some in to increase our amount? Are you guys worried where the money comes from?
Let me check with Canada. I think as long as they give it to you,
Yeah, first.
and I think it's all right. Because I had the Middle Branch down in Clinton River, a homeowners association wanted to throw some more money in than what Clinton Township was. But then now that with this Corona stuff going on, and I was getting it bumped up a little bit every year with the commissioners, But as of now, I'm one person short this summer even for the normal help that I got for doing the manual labor. So I think we're going to be just listening to that 100, and then by the time I spread it all the way around, like this year, Ray Township was 9,000 last year, and Ray's about the same size as you guys. And then I just talked to Joe, and he's going to be 5,000 this year. So, at Washington, I'm doing 20 in Macomb Township, 20 in Lexington, Lennox, and what else? I got Shelby. I always got a lot of stuff, but I got a lot of money in the drains down there with all the building going on. Just remember, whenever you go to the department, the reason for permits and stuff is like I said previous, so that you're not flooding somebody else downstream. When they do all the developments, it all has to be engineered, and that's when they put in detention ponds or bigger pipe, or they make like a double trap drain. So whenever you're looking at drains and you see it's like real wide and it's a shelf, well, they got the low flow channel, and then when you get the high water events, which they call the 100-year flood, the 500-year flood, which are basically like 5-inch and 6-inch rains, that's why they're made in a double shelf, so that it can come up, expand, and be a real wide, flow. And that's all by design, so that you don't flood people out downstream, and you can get rid of the water near your houses. And I hope that helps everybody, just so it gives you an idea of how that stuff is worked.
So you'll be supervising, you keep an eye on this job, this project, as it goes?
Yeah, unless you want to meet me at Cozy's or Jack's.
Does anyone else
Wrangle
have
up Randy so he can pay for it.
Does anyone else have questions or comments on this particular subject?
When is it going to start? When would it start, maybe?
When I get back Monday, then I'll have a better idea. I was trying to. We had a little snafu with all this stuff going on, because we were going to do the $5,000 work earlier, but with this stuff going on, I already told Carl I wanted him to start up back about a month ago, but I got to see what my, the other guy, where they're at, and then what happens is if blockages come up, I pull off and got to go do them. So just for instance, I don't know, down off I-94 and 13 Mile Road, there's 2 ponds alongside of the expressway. If anybody goes down there, well, it's called the Marsac. There's a drain goes on underneath I-94. It was flooding up there. I ended up pulling about 15 yards worth of garbage out of the grate. I dropped the water. The engineers were starting to design and find out, put water different ways. That grate's never been cleaned. When I got done cleaning it, I lowered that lake by almost 7 feet. So that's what, we pop around. And over in Sterling Heights, one of the last jobs Bruce did, we had about 6 gravel train loads of garbage just, in one drain. It was blocking and it was holding the pond up. But up this way, I have a lot of problems with beavers. A lot of problems with beavers. So, but once again, when you get a chance, you can go on our website if you want. If not, the township has that map in there, and it'll tell you what drain are our drains. If you have any questions, if you want to do any work on your own drain, feel free to call me, and then I'll explain how to do it. And I just kind of supervise and come in and check on you to make sure that you're following the guidelines for it.
Any other comments at all on this? Anybody have any other comments, any questions for him while we're out here? Go ahead, sir.
I'm the property right at, log drain right at Bull Plank.
What, the nice yard there? Yeah.
He's on the west side.
I'm on the west side.
West side, all on the woods there.
I'm on the woods. I'm probably the problem area.
Yeah, you got a lot. Yeah, I'm going to be cutting on one side or the other there.
I mean, you've looked at that bridge at Bull Plank.
Yeah.
You can see that the whole face of that caved in, and I got the road commission and the drain commission out to pull the bigger chunks out.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then talk to him about the road commission stuff.
I mean, I've actually paid somebody to dredge that bridge right there. This is a collection spot for debris that comes down.
That's why by us cleaning it, that shouldn't be happening. It's going to eventually, but you call if for some reason stuff does come back in there and
I'm not so worried
you
so
call me.
much about the stuff. I mean, I can get some of that out of there. What I'm worried about is what's with all the silt that's all built up right up the culverts. I mean, and culverts are probably what, 3-footers or something, maybe
No, they're
bigger
bigger
than that.
Yeah, I think they're 60
But
inch.
they're like 70% full of debris, and then.
Well, once I get it cleaned out and we get a big rain, usually that'll flush. If not, I get a hold of the New Haven barn, and they got a sewer jet. Yeah, no, New Haven don't have it. Either Shelby or Clinton Township, and they got a jetter machine. I had that problem at 29 Mile Road on the Shook drain over there. It was really hard for the jetter even to get that big pipe out, but it does start flushing out, you know. So we'll get it back down to original invert, and then probably dig like a sump hole there, so it can flush out and settle in there and still keep the same channel. And if it builds up anymore, just coming out for a one-day job, I got enough money in you know, that I can come out. You know, if there's any blockages or if we get a silt up. But if it's at the road, any erosion, we got to get a hold of the road commission.
Is there any plan on redoing that culvert and the headers and all that? I know there was an issue with a sinkhole over there that came out and was there.
We have 2 bridge inspectors, and they go throughout the year. They'll do bridge evaluations. That's something I can check with them and see if that's one that they evaluated. I know they were spending quite a bit of time at the north end this spring. I can check with them and see what's on the road.
They raised the road at least a couple feet there, and turning in off my driveway, it's like going off a cliff.
Back to your, I'm hoping in the next 2 weeks to start. Okay? And then, I don't have any business cards on me or nothing either. Shit. Public Works and then Ken Blakey, and then I'll be out there, you know, so then usually I knock on. The biggest thing is, with this COVID going on, normally, you know, I got the map, I get everybody's parcel identification, then I go to another woman in the office and I give her a letter to mail to everybody, and it notifies everybody, but it's been a pain in the neck trying to do the whole process right now. That's why I like to just get out and talk to all the people that are on the property, whose properties.
We can put your information on our website,
That'd be great.
and that way they can see it. It's easy for them to go on there and they get a hold of you.
Do you need any access right-of-ways or anything into the property?
Some of them I do. I don't know whose properties are which. Most generally, everybody is pretty happy because I'm not going to tear nothing up. But you know, otherwise we got to go in and just follow it all the way around. A lot of times that's what we do, just follow it. And then if I hit a farmer's lane, you know, and then if there's crops in, then, you know, it depends on how much they got it, because I don't want to destroy anybody's crops, and then we'll just, you know, hold off and then get it back in the wintertime, depending on how far we get back to that.
Is that a 50-foot right-of-way?
You know, I don't know what the right-of-way is on that right now. I don't have my paperwork. But most generally, they're, you know, that's usually they're really, really close, anywhere between 40, and then they go, we can have some of them over 100 feet, but, and that goes from the center line usually, but sometimes the drains with nature and being plugged up, the courses change, and then it's, you know, so it might be a little shorter on somebody's one side or another. But a lot of them are 60 feet, you got 30 feet on each side, you know, from center to center. Are you on the log drain? Are you guys on it? Are you on the log? Okay. How many people here are on the log? Okay. You guys got access for me to get in?
Absolutely. Welcome in. Hurry.
So it'll be CBX and Macomb County Public Works. We got all white pickups and, you know, it'll say CBX on there. Ms. Supervisor?
Anything else at all? If not, I'm going to thank Mr. Goyke for coming, particularly while he was on vacation. I really appreciate you coming here so you can address this with everyone. And I want to thank everyone for all their interest. And we will have our office manager put his contact information on our website tomorrow so you can go on there and see it. You will be back on Monday, you said, from vacation?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And thank you for meeting out here. Sure? Yes?
About, I don't know, maybe 10 years, there was a drain that we were paying for on our taxes. I think it was another year or maybe 2 years
It
ago.
could be, yeah.
That's done.
Sure.
I don't know.
That is the inter-county drain that he was talking about between St. Clair and Macomb.
So
The 10 years should be up to, if it's not,
Because the roof was done.
that I wouldn't be able
That's what I wanted to know, if the roof was done. I mean, we paid for it.
yeah, normally it's done and then the money puts a bond on it and it pays, you know, when the people are paying it, it pays the bond back off. is normally how they work on those drains. See that inter-county drain? That might not be the drain you're living on, but it's the drain that your drain is draining into.
I just wondered if it was done.
I don't even know which one it is.
It's part of the Gillette.
The Gillette? Yeah, okay. Yeah, I haven't done nothing in the Gillette, you know, in the 2 years that I've been running the program.
Because we have, I think, one more year.
And I believe that most of that work that was being done in that drains, for some of the projects, all probably, pretty sure it's all mostly the same thing. I may be wrong, but I thought that he said that it was.
That's how I explained, that, you know, hopefully I helped when I explained how Public Act 40 works with the inter-county drains and stuff.
I just wondered if we've done it.
I don't know. That was
What
before
we
me.
paid for is we've done.
Yeah, absolutely. You want to make sure you got your money to it.
Anybody else before we head back inside? Nope. Thank you for coming, everybody. Thanks a lot. And thank you. What?
You need for anything? Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're back inside. Thank you, everybody on the board, for going outside. I think that was a great idea. We were at public comment on agenda items. I think everyone that's wanted to speak did so. So next item on the agenda will be the approval of the board minutes of June 10th, 2020. I would entertain a motion to approve.
Move to approve the June 2020 board minutes.
Is there support?
I'll support.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion is carried. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the consent agenda. We have building department reports for June and July, EMS report, office manager reports for June and July, planning commission report, and the NAMC minutes. A motion would be in order to approve the consent agenda either as presented, or if you'd like to pull something off there, please indicate.
I'll move to approve the consent agenda with the removal of the July building report and the July office manager report.
Is there support?
Report.
Any more discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion is carried. Next item on the agenda is the financial reports. Kathy has provided us with a schedule of bills to approve. Motion would be in order to approve and pay the bills as presented.
So moved.
Is there support?
Support.
Are there any questions for Kathy on any of the bills? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion is carried. Next item on the agenda is the treasurer's report. Bob?
Okay, so this month, since we didn't meet in July, we have 2 reports for July. And I'm just going to read the amended report, which included the Michigan Schools and Credit Union balance through the end of June, as opposed to the first report that did not include it. The general funds, fire fund had $1,021,709.33. The tax account had $14,862.45. The other PNC accounts, $51,737.98. The investment accounts, $386,937.59. And the PDR account, $13,962.39 for a grand total of $1,489,209.74. That's the July amended report. The August report is as follows, with the same account summary. The general fund, fire fund had $914,909.59. Tax account, $388,175.38. The other PNC accounts, $48,250.02. The investment account, $387,223.66. And the PDR account, $13,962.98 for a grand total of $1,752,521.63. Should note that We have the standard monthly income report attached to those reports, but the CD at North Star matured in July 21st. It was deposited into the checking account there. And then we had, of course, the earlier CD had matured in June of 2020, also deposited in the checking account there. So we have basically $135,000 in that checking account. The other thing I wanted to point out is we also had the Michigan Schools of Government Credit Union CD mature during the course of July. That was renewed at 0.85% for a period of, I believe it was 18 months to January of 2022. I don't think I have anything else in the report itself outside of we've got the Dropbox installed. Appreciate Jeff and Kevin and having the contract to put that in. There is the issue of how we want to address what we want to put on it. I think I mentioned to Kathy tonight. I think maybe we just keep the word Dropbox on it. It's a type of lettering in the township logo. Kathy's going to check with her husband, who knows somebody may be able to do that lettering, whatever needs to be done, and we'll see what the price is, and maybe we can check with print off. Hopefully we'll have that all done before we think sometime next month. I'm more concerned about, certainly we'll put that notice on the website. We should put something on the website saying there's a Dropbox out there. It can be used, it's just it's not signified that it's for. I think I know what it's for. I'd like to have that put on the website, that we have a Dropbox for anybody who wants to drop something off without coming into the building. And to talk to the expected treasurer if she wins the next election in November about putting a little flyer of some sort maybe in the tax bills in the winter, indicating to people that alternative to coming into the building in the weather after December, that they can use their Dropbox too. So those are all thoughts.
Who will have a key for that? Just you or?
That's it. I think Chris told us there's 3 keys. I would suggest that the treasurer has one, the clerk has one, and keep one in the office. That's probably good.
I do have one question that has been asked of me in the office. They would like some type of regimented schedule as to when they're supposed to check it, how many times a day, and when you're going to check it. And it's just big questions. They don't want to get in trouble for leaving and...
I think that it's down the walkway. So I think I would leave that to our office manager to use her discretion as to how often she has to go out there. She has a window that looks out so she can see if people are using it. So on the days that we're not open, until we talk to the post office, as you said, we're not talking to the postmaster, we're still going to be picking up Wednesdays and Fridays. And I guess we can check, I think the township treasurer and deputy treasurer can check that Dropbox in those days.
Perfect.
But hopefully we'll get to the point where we'll get the post office to deliver to that box.
Those girls just really would like to have a time frame, especially when taxes are coming in and ballots are coming in. Like you want to check in the morning, in the afternoon, before you leave, or just once a day at the end of the day, or...
I mean, I'm open for thoughts, but I would think that they would want to check at least once at the end of the morning and certainly at the end of the day before we leave instead of when that's not true.
Okay, any questions for Bob?
When should we retire the old Dropbox? We're not using 2 at the same time?
That's a good point. I mean, yeah, my suggestion is we probably, until we get it out there, wait at least until we have the lettering on that box and we get it out on the website for a while. And maybe she can send it out in constant contact with people that have email addresses with the township. So try to pass the word around, do it that way.
We got a new mail guy who's really excited.
He's really
He loved it. He comes all the way in and gives it to the girls. And
Good.
so.
Okay, anything else for Bob at all? No? I just want to thank you for the yearly reviews of the investments. That was nice. Thank you. So next item on the agenda is Farmland Preservation. Bert?
Yes. We did not get the grant from the federal government, so we will not be participating in that. They ended up in purchase some property down by Ann Arbor. It's like over 400 acres, and they paid $1.7 million for it. And then they had two other parcels. They had like roughly $2 million, and the rest of it went towards purchasing two other pieces down there. It didn't cover the total purchase of that property. So what the state, Candy Cook, who is on the state board, he believes that they're going to have another cycle again next year, which is, hopefully we're getting into this, where they're going to have it almost every year. So we might be reapplying by this fall, and maybe reapplying it. And then Barry Larkin, who set this, did all the legwork for our grant work for this, and the PDR committee had paid him, I think, $1,200 to do this work. He said he's more than willing to resubmit these again next year, because there probably will be a lot of paperwork to them. So there's no cost unless we have some new parcels or anything. But and we have the PDR committee has no meeting set for now until we find out if the state is going to have another cycle, and then we'll set our strategy up from there. So that's where we're at this point.
Any questions for Bert? Okay, hearing none, we'll move along to the building report then.
So, really all that was reported on the building was about the Dropbox. I think I got a couple other items a little later on the agenda. Given this item is not particularly on the agenda, probably within the next couple of weeks here, and as some decisions occur tonight and throughout the next few weeks, I'll need to meet with the clerk's office. We'll need to submit items that we want to request reimbursement for with those CARES Act dollars that the county sent us. We don't want to get too long down the road and then miss the deadlines for the expenditure of those monies. So I know there's some items that have been purchased. I know we did some work on the glass out here on the building to protect our staff. I know there's been discussion about some different projects. We've really got to just wrap that up and get those applications in, or let our money go back to federal government. So we'll really need to focus on that in the next couple of weeks.
Okay, Jeff. All set?
That's it.
Anyone have questions for Jeff? Okay, hearing none, we'll move along to the assessor's report. This is our first report from our new assessor. I did indeed get to meet her. She is delightful, seems wonderful. She mentioned to me that Jan was being asked to work on section pages for the GIS sections, and that she knew the man that had actually given us the original one, and so she got him to give us the section pages for free, which I thought was awesome. So they're professionally done, which is great. And she did see through the split that we are proposing on the property, and she did help us facilitate that to move along a little bit faster. So does anyone have any questions or anything they'd like me to take to her, or Lisa? Okay. Hearing none, we will then move along to unfinished business. And under unfinished business, we have the medical marijuana issue. I enclosed an article, and then I enclosed a short memo with an opinion that I had asked our attorney for, just to clarify where we stand after the recent ruling on what townships can do as far as zoning medical marijuana places. Any comments on that? Okay, we'll move to new business. The first item under new business is to discuss an RFP for engineering services. I would need a motion in order to open discussion.
I move to discuss the RFP for engineering services.
Is there support?
I'll support.
Okay, so I started working on this, and as I started working on it a little at a time, I spoke to 3 or 4 people that are involved with our township that are all aware of an engineer in the neighboring community, and all of them had very complimentary things to say about him, that he was very good at his work and he was pretty cost effective. So I did, of course, double check with Sharon, as I always do, and we are not required, if we want to switch engineers or just use a different one occasionally, to go through the entire process, our RFP. So what I'm looking for tonight is just direction from the board. Do you want me to continue to work on the RFP and refine it? If so, we'll need to decide on some dates. Or do you want me to just maybe talk to this particular engineer, or you folks can suggest a couple to me and I can contact them. So we'll start with you, Chris.
So we're not required to just change it here?
Yep.
I mean, I don't know that we change 100%, but I know the gentleman speaking of, I agree. Fantastic guy. Companies are really good. I wouldn't mind trying it out, but there's certain things that we can kind of, if we had something came up, we felt like we could give it to them just to see how it went. I'd be big for that. Still keeping our current engineers, at least for the meantime.
So then you would be in favor of doing that versus now putting an RFP out, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Kathy?
No, I'm in favor of moving forward with someone new, and if somebody else has anyone else other than
Yep.
that, then sure, I mean, I would entertain interviewing them, but if we can bypass the RFP,
We
I
can.
don't see why we shouldn't.
Okay. Bob?
Who's the gentleman we're looking at?
He is the gentleman that is the engineer for Landis Township.
Okay,
And,
that's all I need to hear.
okay,
I'm in favor of approaching him.
okay. Vern?
Yes, I'm in favor of moving on to the, without doing an RFP going on. We've had a few issues at the planning commission. I think the board is well aware of it. Even Chairman Paul Stewart said he felt we needed to get somebody different.
And he was one of the people that I had heard from, and he was gentleman.
And he felt we were paying way too much money. They couldn't get a hold of them anymore. I think it's time to move on.
Okay. So just so I understand then, I have authority to go ahead and contact this gentleman on our behalf. Is the board, are you going to want to interview him or anything, or should, what is your pleasure with that? I mean, I know that you know him, Paul Stewart knows him, perhaps Bob, I don't know if you know, but it sounds like maybe you know of him. Kathy, you've heard good things about him. I've not heard one negative thing about him. So I'd be happy to just contact him tomorrow and see if he'd be interested in providing service for us when we need it. And if the board is okay with that, that's the direction I'm going to go in.
I agree.
Okay. All right, so then I just need a motion on the opening for discussion, and we'll be good with this. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion is carried. Okay, then I will contact him tomorrow, and I will let everyone know. Okay, next item on the agenda is to discuss the purchase of the computer equipment. And so I am looking for a motion to open discussion on the quotation by Tower Computer for new computer equipment. Can I get support?
Support.
Okay, so if you would like to come up, Hassan, and perhaps go over, I did give the board pretty much all of the documents that you had given to me. I know that the quote was large. There seemed like a lot of equipment that we needed, but it also seemed like most of it was out of date, and at this point, if something happened with it, you perhaps might not be able to repair it. So I did bring you here tonight to maybe kind of review this with us again,
Right.
and then I will entertain questions from the board for him. So I'm going to turn it over to you.
Good evening, Hassan Jawad, Tower Computer Services. I'm going to start off kind of is driving the majority of this proposal. We had done a site site, review of your equipment, identifying anything that we see as being an issue. And so we come back with a report, and the quote is then generated off of our findings. The most important thing here is, and I should say that the server that's in place currently has been here a little over 8 years, and we are actually the company that provided the server that's here to begin with. The operating system that is on this server is Windows Server 2000. We're in 2020, so it's Windows Server 2008 Revision 2, which reached end of life in January of 2020 of this year. And what that means is that operating system is no longer receiving security patches or updates from Microsoft, so it leaves the township in a compromised state. The operating system is also not supported by Microsoft, so if there was an incident where Microsoft support was needed and we needed to call Microsoft support for assistance, they would not support it even if we wanted to pay them. So that is the major driver here, and it's not a scenario where we can keep the equipment and upgrade the operating system, because Microsoft is a little tricky that way. And what they do is the newer operating systems, which we would have to go to Server 2019 is the latest version of the operating system, because your server is 8+ years old, there are no drivers in a 2019 operating system to work with the server that you currently have. So you're forced to not only upgrade the operating system, but replace the equipment as well. And that's the major driver of the quote that we put together. Going through some other things in regards to the site, we have some old network switches and access points and things like that as well that have also reached an end of life, that are no longer having firmware release. There's no more security patches, there's no more updates. So the primary objective of this proposal is to get the township on a current platform that is supported, that is secure, and some of the other things that I won't go through a line by line unless you have some specific questions regarding the proposal, but we go through and identify some things like battery backup and some updates to your firewall and configurations and such like that. But I'll pause for a moment and maybe take some questions and see what you guys have that may not have been clear proposals I can answer for you.
We'll start with that.
So the proposal includes the remote computers at the clerk's and the treasurer's office, our home offices.
Yes, sir. So what we did is we broke out the quote to first address your internal infrastructure here, and then we separated a portion of the quote that we call the required equipment for the offsite COVID is what we put in here. So what we did is we separated items that were specific for allowing remote connectivity to the township servers from the outside.
And while we're addressing this, can you give us the final numbers? Because I believe the ones that I submitted to them were up by dollars. I don't think it was a lot, but I had gotten your last email after I sent this to them. So the final for the total proposal, and then break it into two parts. What would be the township's portion and what would be covered?
Right. So the total quote, including all of the workstations for working off-site remote, as well as the server upgrades for working remote, is $38,647.50. The tab that is specific that we broke off for COVID was $16,460. $68 is attributed to the COVID component.
So that leaves us at about 22.
Yeah. So let me just hit one other item here. So we actually broke out the labor as well. Give me 1 second. Let me just get my head right back around. So that $38,000 amount is included. It's an all-encompassing labor amount for the project. Let me just double check really quick. Okay, sorry. So I actually broke out the labor for the COVID remote tab. So that $16,468 actually includes the parts and the labor for the remote component. And then the labor installation for the internal infrastructure is part of this grand total. So let me just do $6,890 for the internal infrastructure labor. And then we've got another $3,375 in labor for the remote work. Does everybody have a copy of the quote? There'll be one version. Okay, so if you go to page 7, this will be easier instead of having to listen. You can follow it. And so there's a summary at the bottom of page 7. And so it's broken down into a couple of categories. The first category is the actual, so the HPMO client, MO350-10, that's the server. Then the next item is the network switch, which is here for township. Server backup options are in here as well. The antivirus software licensing. Exchange 2019 is bringing mail functionality here in-house. You're already purchasing the server infrastructure, so this is a one-time purchase of licenses, so you don't have to end up in a reoccurring price scenario for email. And then if you flip to the next page, the Zix archive we only quoted out a, let me see how they quoted out here. This is for instead of the encrypted email, so we quoted out, that's a full 10 licenses as well for 10 users. And then your next tab, as I mentioned, is the labor and equipment for the COVID remote, which is the $16,468. And then the $6,890 is for the installation of the internal server switch and any work that's associated with work here within the township.
Now, you did say earlier to me that you did bring copies for everyone, because I'm looking through here and I don't see page 7 on here, so if you have those,
I brought a few extra copies.
that would be, I'd really appreciate that, thank you.
I got 2 of the quotes.
Lori, would you mind making a couple copies, please? I'm so sorry, I appreciate that.
No worries.
Thank you. Thank you.
Page 6, that's it.
Yeah.
Page 5.
Yeah. And that's what I was thinking, which is why I'm gonna have to do that, so you know what they're looking
I'm glad you have that.
While the deputy clerk is making the copies, I do have a question. The watch guard fee, that's an annual fee, isn't it?
So that's coming up in October. You have a current subscription in play. So on the firewall The expiration is, let's see here. It comes up in October for renewal. Yes, you are correct. It's an annual subscription. That firewall that you currently have will reach end of life December 31st of 2022. Once you hit that end of life on the firewall, it will then need to be, that will need to be replaced. But that's not until 2022. The current firewall is fine for our purposes now.
And I'm looking at the one I got on my email on the board packet. It says WatchGuard $1,278. What does that mean? I don't have that printout.
Let me see.
It was under quotation version 2.
Let me take a look and see if there's anything that's in here.
So yours should be like my 2.4, that's what we're looking at. Yeah.
So, under the network switch heading on the quote that you're going to get a copy of here, there is 2 wireless access points. Did you say $1,278?
Yes.
Yes. So that's on this quote, and those are wireless access points. Your wireless access points here are also end of life and no longer receiving updated firmware or security patches. So what that is those access points, everything now has become subscription-based. Firewalls are subscription-based, access points are subscription-based, and these access points come with a 3-year license, and they won't come up for renewal until year 4. And so on that note as well, the server will also come with a 3-year on-site parts and labor warranty. And one of the items that we have on here is we have an uplift to the warranty. It's 24/7, 4-hour response as part of the proposal as well.
So just follow up that question on the WatchGuard. So after 3 years, are we going to have to worry about around 1278?
No, there'll be a fourth year subscription renewal that will come into play. It won't be. So this 1278 is their 639 a piece times 2 access points, and that includes 3 years on each of the units. So when you get to year 4, you may end up with I'd probably think it's going to be in the mid-$100 range for another year renewal per access point.
Is the server, you said there's 3 years on the warranty on that server, but what's the expected life on that server?
Well, the one that you had has been here for 8+ years. That's pretty darn good. We tend to aim for around 5 years. But if you do better than that, then so be it. It tends to be dictated by how you're using our applications that you're necessarily using, but you should get another 5 years out of it pretty easily. They're very reliable service. Server that you guys have had here since 2012 has been pretty solid.
Which one? It's one that we got through you, right?
That's correct.
I wanted to say anything else.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, the HP servers are very reliable.
I don't have any other questions.
Vern, do you have any questions?
No.
Chris?
You talked about the operating system and end of life. What operating system would we be getting with this, and how long do you expect it to last?
So you would go to server 2019, and because it's so new, there is no end of life date yet. So they don't have a published end of life date. So figure we just finished with 2008. And 2008 ran up all the way to 2020 before it reached an end of life. So you had 12 years before it reached end of life. So I can probably safely say that, even being conservative and say you'll get 8 years before you hit end of life date with the newly replaced operating system.
Okay. And the computers that we just replaced last year, do they need anything to be compatible with this new system?
So that was part of our part of our survey as well. Those machines are from HP as well. We provided those machines. We did make a note in our survey to simply update the firmware, update the drivers, and patch them and get them current as well. But other than that, they're really good machines and they're solid. And they still have some warranty left on them as well.
Kathy? Okay, so I did want to add a couple of things. I do want to thank you, Hassan, for all of the time that you've spent on this, and Jeff as well, for pointing out that it might be possible for us to access some of the CARES money for remote use for computers. I don't see a time in the future where we're going to have this opportunity again, I hope. I mean, I don't, the reason we're going to be getting some money to spend on this is not what I want to run into again soon. I did mention, because this was not something that we had in our budget, that there was some financing, and this was an approximate of $709 a month for 3 years, and at the end of the lease, we could buy all of the equipment for $1. Kathy had provided me with a bunch of figures. We have done that with other equipment in the past. Bob, you had mentioned, does this cover the remote at your home? And it absolutely would be the one that you have now, and then the clerk would also be getting something that she could use in the same manner as the treasurer does. To be very upfront, because this is, to me, this is a big purchase. It's a lot of money. When you were talking about breaking out the labor between the two, I don't know, and maybe I can address this with Jeff, if the CARES money covers labor. I don't know that they do.
So,
I'll be honest.
I had a long conversation about CARES money today with folks down at the county, because I spent a few hours at Lennox Township about this earlier, where I'm also responsible for how we kind of spend that, for lack of a better word, at least the application for it. So the short answer to your question is, we think so. Here's the long answer to the question. The long answer to the question is, if you submit something to the county, and Kathy and I can work on that, and you put on there that it's for COVID relief, whatever it is, as long as you can justify that those dollars were used to ensure that you could do things like, in this case, off-site work, as long as you can tie it back to COVID, the county's going to pay. They're not going to pick and choose projects. Now here's the caveat. We wrote all that in there. We submitted. We don't know when this will be, but sometime, knowing the federal government, 3 to 4 years from now, there will be people at the federal level who will audit all these monies that have been given away. And they may come to communities. Now, we have a very small amount compared to most. We may never get audited at all. But if they come here, we'll have to say, this money was used for ensuring people can work off-site, which is all appropriate and eligible. And certainly in order to do that, labor would be a part of it, because none of us are capable of making this work. And so I would think it would be fine. I couch it that way to say, worst case scenario is, and this is the same thing I told our neighboring community earlier today, is worst case scenario is some federal auditor could decide that a portion of it has to be paid. But as far as being able to give you this is it or this is not, there just isn't that price. It's 90% certain.
And that's why I wanted to bring it up, because I don't know that, and I know that has been a question I've heard before. So just to be fair, I wanted, it's a big decision, and I just wanted to make sure we had the information.
My belief is, with everything I've been told, I've had numerous conversations on the use of this money, not only for this, but other, projects and things in communities, in the 2 communities that I'm responsible for. And
my instinct is I've not been told anything that makes me believe this will not be fully eligible. In other words, the $16,000 I think will be payable, and as long as we as a community can say we use it for this purpose, and it was to ensure the ability for people to work off-site, especially if we see numbers, COVID go back up here in the fall and early winter, then it is eligible.
There was nothing in the list that I thought was a stretch to say, hey, maybe we can make this fit under the.
And we did talk about that, about what wasn't in his line.
And then on page 7, we actually put a line, there's 6 line items there explaining why we did and what they were being used for, so that if something happened 2 or 3 years later, you couldn't remember what the reasoning was, we have here in the proposal specifying exactly why we're providing this and what it was being used for as well.
If we were to go ahead and approve this, so one thing, obviously, if we don't update the server and the equipment that goes with it, the availability for the remote equipment to work is not possible, correct?
Well, so I'll check a little bit on that. The way you're currently doing things is you've got users from the outside connecting to multiple users from the outside connecting to their PCs. And so as a result, your firewall has multiple holes in it. And the way that it's really supposed to be done, that's part of some of the reconfiguration that needs to be done here with the firewalls. We would no longer be connecting to individual PCs. We would be connecting to a secure remote server, and we will be doing it with through a VPN, which is going to be a secure connection, where whatever computer connection on the outside is going to have a secure key on it. If you don't have a key, you're not going to get in. The other component here is part of the COVID remote tab on this quote, as we specified some laptops. Nobody should be connecting from, and I don't believe anybody is, but I'll just say, you should never be connecting to a business or a municipality from a personal computer that's in your home laptop, a home PC, because suddenly what you're doing is there may be 4 or 5 people in your household that use the PC at home. You connect to a municipality, you connect to an office, and you're suddenly compromising that network with things that you may have on your PC. So the idea here is that you have a standard in regards to security standards that are being maintained and upheld on the computer equipment that's connecting remotely as well, so you don't have different people set up different ways. There's a standard across the board, and that will help ensure that the remote work is also secure.
If we were to go ahead and move forward with this, how long would it take before you could begin installation of?
About 30 days.
And as far as the lease goes, is that something that you will direct us to them? Do we sign paperwork through you? How does that work?
So I would direct you to them, and I brought a copy of the lease proposal as well. I heard you mention a number earlier, so we got 2 numbers for the lease. We got a lease number just for the base server, and then we got a lease number for the server and all the remote equipment as well, just to break that out. The $709 number that you mentioned is the number without the equipment, without the remote equipment, and then $1195 was the estimated payment with the remote COVID equipment. And the way that lease works is it's a 36-month lease, and it is a $1 buyout at the end of the lease, so it's not a fair market value lease where you're dealing with some unpredictable number at the end.
I remember when we discussed this, and I know that anything that we would be reimbursed for, we would have to pay in totality for and submit those receipts to the county. So we could not lease the $38,000. We could lease the $22,000.
Okay.
We couldn't the bigger lease because we have to pay for it.
That is one thing that has been made abundantly clear to me. If we don't spend this money in about the next 45 days, give or take, 60 days, I don't know the exact deadline is coming up on it now, then we lose it, that $37,000 of money. You cannot enter a long-term lease with this money. You can't take the money and pay the lease over time. None of that is allowable. You pay it in full, much like we do with CDBGs. We just did this with the roof on the senior center, very same premise. You pay it, we complete some paperwork, and you request the reimbursement back from the county, and they have reimbursement you in whole. Usually those reimbursements take anywhere between 30 to 60 days to come back, depending on how much will flow. But it's not normally a real long time to figure it out. The only other thing I was going to mention on that is in May, if we start to get close on any of those deadlines, it would be my recommendation to Kathy and the board that we may even pay that $16,000 if the board decides to move forward ahead of actually a year or so. In other words, we have an invoice us for that amount. Because one of the things we have to produce for the county is the invoice and the check.
Yeah, the check, that's.
So we may have to do it, keep ahead of everything, be 100% done. We deal with power at EMS, there's still $22,000 tied up, I'm not worried about, I have no concerns about paying that money in advance.
Touching on whether the waiver is covered or not, I can't guarantee it, but from what I've seen in regards to RFPs and bids that have come out most recently from Macomb County as well as Wayne County, and there were CARES Act type proposals. They did have labor as part of those RFPs. They actually, there was a couple of the RFPs that actually got revised and came back with the labor as if they figured or understood that they could request that. And then in regards to the deadline date, I know there was a press on these RFPs not to have the project completed and paid for by, there's a date in December, and I don't remember exactly what, but it was pretty positive it needed to be completed by December in order for it to qualify. But that would have to be verified. That's what I've seen thus far with some of the RFPs that we've been involved in.
So I think one last thing I wanted to cover before we move forward with this was in my memo, I had told the board that it was my understanding at the time that Tower Computer would not want to be our service provider if we were not to purchase this because the equipment would not be in a place where they would want to be responsible for it. So I did you guys get the email I sent today? Did everyone get it? Okay, I just want to make sure we're up front with everything. So in that, what I'd like to do with this now is I'm going to take a vote on the motion to discuss. And then after that, I will be asking for a motion to approve. And then we can vote.
Can I just ask real quick?
Sure.
If we do move forward with this, would we lean more towards the lease or the, what I understand from Jeff, the funds, we could do the lease, is that correct?
So we would have to purchase all of the equipment that would be covered under the CARES money. We would have to purchase the $16,468 invoice. We could lease the $22,179 for about $709 a month for 36 months with a dollar buyout at the end of all the equipment. Good? Any other questions?
Yeah, just a little bit. That'd be about $3,000 that we cost us to do the lease, 3-year lease. If we did the 709 and 36. Correct. Okay.
$8,400 a year, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's going to cost a little money. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Okay, hearing other questions, then this vote, I'm going to call the question on the discussing of the computer equipment. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion is carried. I am now looking for a motion to approve the expenditure of $38,647.50 to Tower Computer. with $22,179.50 being the township's portion of the invoice, and $16,468 will be submitted as remote availability COVID expenses. And I think that's it. If I could get that motion?
So moved.
Is there support? Support. Is there any further discussion on this?
I would just add to the motion that the $16,468 be paid upon submission immediately of the invoice, and we have that all taken care of for the purposes of the QR submission.
Good with that?
Yes, yeah.
That's it, Bob? You're good? That's it. And if there's no other discussion, I'm going to ask Kathy to call the roll, please.
Sure. Coleman,
Aye.
Zelman,
Aye.
LaFontaine, aye. DeVos,
Aye.
Greener.
Aye. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is to approve tower computer IT services for our service vendor. A motion would be in order to approve tower computers for Richmond Township IT service vendor at a cost of $7.99 a month.
So moved.
Can I get a support?
Support.
So this is initially how this all started, was we were asking them to be for a quote on being our service provider. Before we have, I guess I just want to indicate that I think average, the average hourly rate is between $130 and $150 for IT services. So I know when I met with Hassan and we had talked, and I said, geez, we are open 3 days a week. $7.99 seems like a fair amount of money, and he reminded me that they would be continually working. It wouldn't just be those 3 days a week, that they would always be updating everything. And I guess my point is there, while it seems like a fair amount per month for a township that's open 3 days a month, I think for the service that we would be getting, and fairly, I don't really know that we have been paying a fair amount in the past for perhaps what we should have been paying. On that note, under discussion, I'm going to go ahead and let Kathy start.
I do believe that we got into glitches with our last IT guy, as far as, there were months where it was astronomical, then there were months where it kind of dropped off. So, what did you say?
$800.
$800. I think it would all.
And we did budget $9,000, so that would be pretty close for the year.
And like I say, my biggest concern and only concern is that you'll be there for the election. As I constantly reiterate, because we got to have hands on.
It's all good.
But I'm all for this.
Okay. Chris?
Yeah, I agree with you. We have money in the budget. In the past, you have one person working on it versus a company. There's a lot. There are other people available. If someone's not available, you have another. And I just think it'd be probably safer way to go with the time to work and way internet firewalls and hacking. I just think it's a good move.
Okay. Vern?
Yeah, I think we need to step up. I think we got to free it easy a little bit with the person we had. And I think it's, and listening to him with the firewalls and that, I think we need to step up to that, yeah.
Okay. Bob?
Well, let me say from the treasurer's point of view, our IT person, Rob Miller, was excellent. He came at various times of the night for our treasurer's office to, when we had issues. He wasn't responsive immediately, but he did come. So I understand when the clerk's indicating that we have glitches, we're talking about the difference in monthly pay to Mr. Miller. But I certainly understand where we're at in terms of the quote from Tower and the need for the services that we have in our presentation. So I would certainly support the monthly fee. My only question on the monthly fee, is this a contract or is this a month-to-month?
So we would bill this on a month-to-month type basis if it's simpler for the township to be billed differently. send it on a month basis.
I think that I feel comfortable with that at this point in time. The other thing is, this is definitely 24/7 once it's installed, so that we can contact somebody from tower at any point in time.
We keep somebody on call 24/7. Jeff will tell you, I'm pretty responsive on the email. I'm constantly watching the mailbox. I tend to be the air traffic controller when it comes through the service requests. So we do our best to be as responsive as we can. We do keep someone on call 24/7.
The expectation I see, at least I have for our office, is that once this is installed, once we have a new server, we have remote access, you won't have to come to our location to solve problems.
We try to troubleshoot as much as we can remotely, but sometimes there's those instances that do require somebody to come out. And as part of this agreement, you will get one pre-scheduled visit a month where we will send somebody out, as well as two remote kind of health and wellness checks that we do each month as well. So the objective here is to be proactive and get to the issues before they get to us. The idea is to minimize the amount of service calls, because the way this agreement works is there's a maintenance umbrella and things that fall in the maintenance umbrella. But we have 2 tickets, or whether we have 10 tickets, that month, your dollar amount is the same. So you talk about kind of the ups and downs that you've had in the past with billing. Anything that falls under the maintenance umbrella is going to be covered. And so what does that mean? That means somebody calls in and says, I'm having difficulty logging into this website and getting an error in my, on the internet page. Maintenance umbrella. I've got an email attachment and I can't get it to open. Maintenance umbrella. And those are desktop related type issues, but behind the scenes, we're handling the updates on the servers. We're handling the after-hour reboots and things like that. We're monitoring your backups. We're keeping your firmware and firewall up to date. We're doing all those other things, and all those things fall on the maintenance umbrella. So it's in our best interest to keep you up and running and minimize the amount of calls. Because sometimes there's a great misconception saying, well, boy, we only have to talk to Howard twice this month. Well, that's a good thing. That means we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. If you're calling us every day with ongoing issues, then we're not doing what we're supposed to be doing. So it's a little bit different of a approach. It's a proactive, stay ahead of the curve kind of approach.
Being proactive, do you keep a log of all the calls that come?
So everything is in our service ticketing system. Your users here will have an email address that they can send their service request to. And then as it's a closed loop service ticketing system. And what that means is when you send an email to that email address, it will send you back a response to tell you that ticket was open. When that ticket is assigned, the status changes on that ticket, you'll get a notification. If somebody on our end puts a note to that ticket, you'll get a notification. If you put a note in that ticket or respond to that ticket, we'll get a notification. So it works really well. Plus, you'll have access to a portal where you'll be able to view your service ticket history. And you'll be able to see what the issue was, what the solution was, as well as every month you'll get because there's not going to be a real dollar amount associated with it, a service reconciliation statement that's going to show you all of your tickets for that month, and you'll get that report as well. Anything that falls outside of it, I should be clear about this, anything that falls outside of the maintenance umbrella is, as they say in the construction business, is the equivalent to an admin change order. So for example, the township decides we need to purchase 2 new computers and we need to have them deployed on the network. That's going to be an admin change. If we don't have this kind of rate for you, that's not a maintenance related item. Okay? And those things would get billed at the end of each, typically at the end of each month or the month when they occur. Okay.
So I did just want to follow up on that question Bob asked about the monthly fee. So would we be signing, though, a contract that says that we will have you for a year at that much a month? Is that, no? Okay. And I do know also that when we discussed it, and again, I mentioned we were so small, and you said that maybe in a year you would look at the amount of hours that you spent and see if, you know.
So one thing that I had mentioned, because we had paid for a survey,
Yep.
and I said if you became, signed up for a support agreement, I'll have to go back and see what I put a note on there. I thought it was some sort of time limit that we would credit that back to you if you guys signed up for a support agreement. And I'll go back and look at that and I'll make it back for you as well.
Okay. Any other questions at all? No? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion is carried. Thank you for coming out, and again, for all your time. And Jeff, thank you for all your time with this, because you helped out a bunch.
Appreciate it. We're very pleased with the motion power. And they are very, very responsible.
Appreciate it. Look forward to working with you. Thank you. Okay, next item on the agenda is approved resolution 2020-11. A motion would be in order to approve resolution 2020-11, which authorizes us to purchase the property, and Treasurer Zolka had Deputy Clerk Stewart change the purchase price. It was to be $66,500 instead of $66,000. So she did put, thank you, Lori, a new resolution in front of everyone. If I could get a motion to approve that.
I'll make that motion.
I'll support.
Is there any discussion at all on this?
Yeah, I think I need to make a record here. I mean, there's been some statements made by the public that we had entered into an agreement before tonight. The purchase agreement for this property was just executed yesterday, correct?
We just sent it to them, we haven't even signed it
Okay,
yet.
so it's been only presented, it hasn't been signed. We have to execute the resolution before we can even enter into the agreement itself. So when somebody says we haven't entered into any written agreement, that's what I said. So when the allegation is made that the board is trying to hide something, I take offense to that. We have studied this purchase for some time. This is an opportunity for this township to acquire some land to use for some purposes that we feel that township residents are going to need in the future. So that's where we're at on this, and I want the record to be clear that that's the reason why we're going through with this.
Thank you. Any other comments before we take the vote? Hearing none, Kathy, would you mind doing a roll call on this, please?
Sure. LaFontaine, aye. Zolka?
Aye.
Coleman?
Aye.
DeVos?
Aye.
Greenya?
Aye. Motion is carried. Next item on the agenda is to discuss the meeting room lights. So I guess I'm just going to entertain a motion to open discussion on the meeting room lights and turn it over to Jeff.
Okay,
Sorry.
Go ahead.
So, the meeting room light, so for as many years as I can recall, probably since the building was built, we've had this interesting problem with the light system. And basically, the simple version is these can lights go in the attic. The can lights have a safety feature on them. If that can gets too warm, it shuts the light off. And so we get this intermittent light failure during the meeting. I was showing Mr. Murphy over, you guys were out there at that point in time. These 4 lights over this corner were off, and now they're back on. You know, now the one over Clerk LaFontaine is off. And there's nothing that can really be done to correct it. And I know, you know, for me sitting here, it's not horrible, but I'm betting if I was sitting with the lights right over my head, flashing off and on, you know, my floor table, it would get distracted during the meeting. So we've, for a number of years, we've talked about making this repair, and this year we budgeted for it. And you know, and so we went to obtain bids for that work. And there was 3 bids, and they were considerably different. You know, there was considerable difference between the 3 bids. But the most responsive of all the bidders, kind of that took the most time, spent some time here at the Township Hall, really took a good look at things, was also the lowest bidder. This bidder is a Richmond Township business located at 72220 Wolf Lane. And provided us an initial bid, and then when we looked at it, the treasurer, Mr. Zalka and I came to a similar question, and that was this. So this all gets a tad confusing, and I'll try not to be too long, but the three bids were Northwind Electric, that's the Richmond Township bidder, whose final price was $3,510. Then we had a bid from Advantage Electric. They're the company that actually did the work on the new PMS building. They were the subcontractor for that work. Their bid was $5,023. Then we had a bid from Supreme Electric that was $9,401.32. So we got looking real closely at the bids. And one thing that was noticed is the initial bid from Northwind Electric was for a 20-watt LED bulb. Now what I'm told is that the LED bulbs that we tried to change this out to get this flickering problem stopped previously were 23 watts. They couldn't find 23 watts, so they went down to 20. Because the fellow from Northwind felt like we went all the way up to 33 watts, which is a common next size up, it would be blinding bulbs. So, but the other two bidders both bid at 33 watts. So, I kind of saw that, it was kind of funny, the evening before, Bob had sent me a text and said, hey, did you notice that these lumens and wattages are different? And I said, I actually had just noticed that. And so we went back to Northwind and said, hey, we noticed this difference, what are we missing? And he said, well, it is, a little bit smaller light, but, his concern was if he gets it too bright, you're not going to like that very well either. So he rebid it, and that was a 3510 price that I gave you, with a 28-watt light and 2100 lumens. And so that's versus the 33-watt that puts it up over 3,000. And he thought that would be a good compromise to a nice light level that you would all be reasonably happy with. I don't know if you guys have done a lot of LED lights, but even when you put them in your home, okay? When you used to put in the old incandescent lights, and you put in a 60 or 75 watt or whatever, and you went in to replace that with a 40 watt LED that they thought was blind. We're all getting used to that different style of light now. The lights, the lights that he recommends, these 28 watt, 2100 lumen lights, are a 12-inch can versus the 10-inch can, so they'll be slightly larger than the light as far as the diameter goes. I don't know if you would notice that if I had told you, but they feel it. I'm no electrician, but we've talked a considerable amount to this gentleman. Like I said, he has been very responsive. I think he's been out here 3 times to try to make sure he got this right. We've never done business with him before, but if you do just a, unspecified Google search on him, his star rating was like 4.5, and he had quite a few people that had commented on his business. So, with that, my recommendation to the board tonight is to ask Northwind Electric to order the equipment and make this repair to our recessed lighting system in the amount of $3,510.
Does anyone have any questions for Jeff?
I can vouch for Northwind. He wired my house. He's done other work. He does very good work. Yeah, I've just never dealt with him, so I know he has to maybe go ahead and have work. I think he would be very good. And like you say, township person, so that's good as well. Started as well.
Any questions?
In all fairness, I don't really know any of them, so.
I have a quick question too, and this is like a small township dream come true for me, sitting up there for 8 years with the lights flashing. I'm a proponent of needing this fixed. Did he happen to mention color of the light, like, I know it sounds silly, but I got caught at home with this and replaced one that's like blue, and the other one's white, or these are more, I would think, more of the yellow pigment.
They are, I mean, the LED lights tend to be a whiter light.
Right.
Now, the bulbs that we have in there now, they call it LED light. With this new LED type fixture they're putting in there, my understanding is there is not, I mean, it will sit way up in there so you won't see it, but my understanding is there's not a lens like what you're seeing on there now. So you are going to get the, you know, the white LED light from it. But all these fixtures, even the fixture that I think Advantage put in where they put a picture of it was the same. There was no lens, I guess, or no diffuser over it, if you will.
Okay, so Kathy, can you help me again and tell me who made the motion and who supported it? Lori? I know, we're just, I know that.
I know, I'm
Who
sorry.
made the motion?
No
To
one made the
discuss?
motion yet.
I was gonna say we didn't.
We did.
Okay, I thought we usually make this. Yeah, we did make
Chris
it.
was gonna, he was gonna, then we kind of skipped it.
You said in the motion, I said, so moved, and then we started discussing. Is that
Okay, well, then, okay, that's okay, actually, so,
Feel
then
better.
we don't, I know, right? Well, I usually write it down too, who does it, so it makes me feel better too. So then, I guess if there's no more discussion, a motion would be in order to authorize Jeff to contact Northwind Electric and authorize the purchase of lights for the meeting room at $3,510.
Oh, we have to read it.
Support.
Awesome, I wrote this down now. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion is carried. Thank you again, Jeff. And now we will move forward to the discussion of the signs. So I'm just going to turn that over to you again.
Yeah. All right, well, thank you again. Like I said, again, we budgeted to do some sign replacement here at the township. You know, this year, part of it has to do with the fact that the sign that exists out of school section of road simply is no longer repairable. It was so rotten, we can't make the numbers or letters stick to it any longer. Again, it was put there in 1999. We painted it in the past. We've done our best to maintain it, and it's just to the point that it can no longer be repaired. So, really, the two options are simply we could, I guess it's three options. You could demo the whole sign. You could just let the numbers and letters keep falling off it at some point, or we can, make a repair to it. So the repair proposed. We keep, I sent the board photos of renderings that the sign company did. This JL guys was a pretty big sign company. They did a lot of work for us. They did really well of our work with EMS on any of our buildings. We've had very good luck with them. They would basically continue to use the brick structure that's there, so it wouldn't be taking down anything you don't need to, if you will. And basically just replacing the center portion that would have, Richmond Township indicated on it, the address, the township logo, and then the EMS indicated below there as indicated in the picture. That sign would be a composite type material. It's the equivalent of Trex kind of thing. So it's stuff you don't have to really maintain, which is the real beauty of it. And it lasts allegedly forever. But if we get another 20 years out of it, I'd be pretty darn happy. Kind of thing. So that cost for that, to do that, is $7,920. They didn't charge us anything to do the artwork. Normally the sign companies do that, but they had some of our artwork already from the work done at the EMS building, and so they didn't have to charge us anything to develop that. And then the other proposed part is we talked off and on about putting a sign, up by M19 here in front of the building to somehow make people notice the building's here. I have people ask me all the time where the township is, and they don't notice the township building sitting back here, kind of thing. The school section sign is nice, but you know, unless you drive out of school section, you don't ever see it. And so we talked about putting a sign, you know, up by the road. The problem with that is that gets very, very expensive to do that. And, you know, I think the bid, I didn't even bring that with me tonight, so I didn't envision the board moving forward on it. But in order to put the sign out there and light it, I think it was in the neighborhood of $23,000, $24,000, you know, kind of thing. And that was for no, that wasn't a fancy sign. That wasn't LED, that wasn't anything. That was simply a lighted sign out near the road. So we asked the sign company for a bid to develop, using the township logo, of course, a sign that will go right up on the front peak of the building. That front peak of the building sits very nicely high. You see it really well from the road if you're driving by at night, because we have a big spotlight out there that lights up the entire front of the building. And so I thought simply by putting a you know, a nice size township logo out there to kind of identify the building both day and night from the M19 sign without, you know, going out and constructing something up Natural 19. You can eventually do that if you like, but, you know, it's a lot of money and you know, to do. So the cost to put that on the front of the building would be $5,197.30. Again, they have that same kind of material that that we would make the sign at school section out of the I call it Trex type material, if you're familiar with that, the composite kind of material. And then basically $900 in order to install the sign. I proposed with that this would come out of the EMS budget, so that's why I'm not asking the township to approve this amount. That I can't tell you how often I get asked, geez, where is that EMS station that's supposedly up there? You know, this is how people say it, up there by Nexus. And I say, well, it's right in that big brown V-shaped building. Really? That was our offices. No, that's the township hall of the EMS. Really? Yeah, that's where we're all located. And that's literally what you get in our community to this day. In many years, this building been here 20 years, we still have people ask what it is. So the EMS logo would then go on the north wall and peak of the building. And like I said, the EMS would be paying for that portion of that logo. So I did, it's the price included here for it of $4,400. And then we cover half the install, you know, so you guys would pay $900, we would pay $900 for the install. So I didn't, I don't know if the board needs to particularly approve the EMS's sign for it. So those are my recommendations tonight. With the board authorized me to move forward with J.L. Geisler to replace the school section road sign at a cost of $7,920. And put the new sign on the front of the building as designed at the cost of, $5,197.30 plus $900 for installation.
And that totals, was it $14,017.30?
I believe that's correct.
So, first of all, Jeff, thank you so much again for all your efforts with this. I believe that we budgeted $7,500 for this night. So the $79.20 for the sign out by the road would absolutely keep that money. When I saw the proposed sign for the front of the building, I thought what a great idea that was, rather than try to get one out by the road and the amount of money that would cost, it would be far, far more. I would like to see us approve both signs. Again, you know, that's another $6,000 that we didn't necessarily have somewhere. We do have half of the money for an EMS truck that we could perhaps use some of this year toward the sign and allocate more for it next year to make up for this. We do have about $1,000 left from the lights. So we'll start with you, Vern, for your thoughts on this.
I would like to do both of them too, because I think this sign up here is no question.
Yeah, that's.
Has to be fixed. And we've left it go now. We've left it go, let it go. It needs to be fixed. And I think the sign up, I know it's not something we want to just end, but I think it's a very good solution to what we were talking about. I'm in favor of that and putting a sign out there, you know, at a cost of $20,000, $30,000. I know it's a lot of money, but I just think we should do it.
I'm a little confused. I don't have the $7,000 figure in my material.
I'm bringing up, I thought it was
You had the option two?
No, so this is option two.
Okay, so this one is project 1, 7910.
This one broke down into two different amounts.
Yeah, so this is option.
This is option
One.
Okay.
So project 1, yes. They gave a different option to use up by the road with metal bicycle section. I wasn't crazy about that as far as the length of time it would hold up. It was a little bit less, so I did not, that's why, like I said, I didn't present that to the board. But this wasn't crazy about that as a solution.
Okay, that was a couple thousand less, but because of it being metal, you thought that wouldn't hold up as well?
Yeah, I was worried about how that would hold up. I'm real familiar with how the composite holds up, and I'm very comfortable with that. Lasting us quite a long time. I don't have that kind of comfort level with the metal.
Okay, so then my only other question then was, I certainly feel that we need to do that, and like the 7,000. But the EMS logo, that's not something we're worried about, because that's something that's going to come out of the EMS budget.
Right. Correct, that's
So
right.
we're just talking about the township logo on top of the building. Yes. And we're spending a lot of money.
We are?
Yeah.
No doubt.
I'd like to do it, but I'd like to hold off on that until the next budget year. I don't know if we can get it the same price. I just think that, you know, we've lived this long for, without that logo on top of it. It's a great idea, but I think if we can wait till next budget year, I'd be more in favor of that.
Would there be any large cost effectiveness to doing it this year, or do you think?
You know, I don't think so. I don't think there will be, you know, I'm not a sign over it, but whether we do it this year or next year,
love the idea.
I don't know that they're going to charge us a whole bunch more money to do it one year versus the other. But if we really think we're going to do it next year anyways, if the board's really kind of focused on that direction, my only suggestion might be just to get it done, wrapped up, and we're going to have some, you know, new landscaping out here in front of the building, so it's going to be very dressed up and looking nice out there. Kind of, I thought it would feel nice if we got it all done at once, so the whole front of the building looked nice together, kind of thing. You know, my suggestion would be, we did save $1,000, I think, on the lights.
Yep.
Which means we have to take about $3,000 out of the truck to bring that down to 12. We could budget that next year. You know,
18,000.
Right, and do 18,000 next year on the truck versus, you know, the 15 this year, and then just get it all done at the same time. But I don't feel that strongly about it either way. Just throw that out there as a, you know, I understand the budget, and you know, I don't want to overspend either.
Are you going to do the EMS sign regardless of what we do here?
Great.
I was wondering if they're charging us $900 to put it up.
Right.
Are they going to give us a deal because they're putting?
Well, it was $1,800 for both of them. I was thinking on $900 of it, and the EMS.
You would just split.
I would probably try to do the EMS sign soon, but again, if the board would prefer to do both at once, I could.
Yeah.
I'm trying to be real reasonable about it. I don't know if I feel strongly about it. I think it would be nice to have the whole, just aesthetically speaking, the whole front of the building done at the same time.
Let me just indicate, with Jeff's proposal, an idea about changing the budget on the ambulance, I think we might as well go ahead at this point. Okay, we'll just decrease the amount the budget for the ambulance and increase it next year. So, let's get it done then.
I know, let's go ahead and do it.
Yeah, we were going to. We probably should have had that simple one years ago.
Yeah, I think so.
Things don't get cheaper, right?
Okay, so, do you want to formulate a motion and indicate the change in the budget with that, or? I mean, the budget is a guideline, so I don't know that you necessarily have to indicate that.
No, I think we understand what we're going to do.
Right.
We're going to change what this expect.
Okay, so then I will be asking for a motion to authorize Jeff to move forward with, I'm sorry, is it Geisler?
Yeah, the company is J.L. Geisler, sign company.
To purchase the school section sign in the amount of $7,920, and also the new sign for the front peak of the building at a cost of $5,197 plus $900 for installation.
Make that motion.
Is there support?
Support.
Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Thank you again a lot, Jeff. That is, I'm excited to see that. And like you said, with the new landscaping, I think it's going to look really nice out there.
And for the purpose of basically the audience, if nothing else, did you guys have talked to Chad about the landscaping, so they don't think we're spending money on that?
We were probably, I was going to have Chris address it.
Very good. I just want to make sure. I kind of brought up landscaping a bit, and then
Yeah, well, that's
probably
good.
going to spend more money on
I
that.
had put it in my supervisor update, but I was hoping Chris was going to talk.
Okay, very good. I just know we need
Thank
to
you.
address that.
Yep. Okay, we are now down to approval of county drain match program application log drain. Motion would be in order to approve the attached application to clean up the log drain beginning at school section and heading south, and to authorize the supervisor to sign on behalf of the township, and whoever is making that motion should probably put the dollar amount of $5,000 or $10,000 in there. So I would entertain a motion.
I make the motion that we approve the matching fund, that we enter into the matching fund program with the county to clean out the log drain at the cost of $10,000.
Is there support on that?
Support.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion is carried, so I will sign that and get that over to Mr. Boyd's office tomorrow. Okay, Bob, we are now at building inspector plan review, and Treasurer's Office did give us all some information tonight.
Okay, I had to ask that this be put on the agenda. I don't think we need to make a decision tonight. I wanted to give you the material that maybe you have to consider. We had a discussion, as far as I can recall, with Charlie and Drew, I would say at the end of 2018, about the issue of plan review by Charlie versus Drew. And I think at that time we agreed that we'd let Charlie continue to do it. And let Drew learn until he was comfortable with doing the plan review. Well, I had Chris pull the building permits that have been issued from 18, 19, and 20. And I'll be frank, I was under the impression that that Charlie wanted to do building plans for new houses. And that's not accurate. According to Chris, he reviews every building permit that came in. And I guess I've seen Charlie do a lot of work, and I'd like to be around at the time that we commend him for his work, as opposed to something happening to him. We don't have that opportunity. I know he has a lot of medical difficulties, and he's done an excellent job for us. And I think at this point, the board should start considering giving Charlie a commemorative resolution and asking Drew to take over the building. I think that if you see the number of permits that have gone through, there's ample opportunity for Drew to have learned something from Charlie. I hope that he's been trying to show him that. My fear is this. we don't know at this point if Drew's even comfortable doing building plan. But I think it's about time we make that decision for him. So my suggestion is look at this material I gave you, and maybe we can discuss it at the next board meeting to have a decision made. I honestly feel that a year and a half, or at least a year, is more than sufficient time for Drew to have learned the ins and outs of reviewing building plans and stepping up to the plate on the topic, and giving us the opportunity to thank Charlie for his work by having something done at the board meeting. So that's why I brought it to everybody's attention. That's why we put it on the agenda. Like I said, I don't think we need to make a decision tonight.
I contacted you this week. I thought perhaps this was going to be your thought. And I said that I remember when we started talking about this, the idea was for him to be trained, so that at some point he could just take over for Charlie. And so I said, are you more comfortable with plan reviews? And he said he is good on all plan reviews except a new house. And he said him and Charlie were literally just starting to do that, and Charlie got one sick. So he has contacted another building inspector in a nearby community, and he is trying to learn from him. So I will call him tomorrow and just tell him we're going to talk about this, and have him give me, I guess, his feeling on it. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I understand. And I'd probably be reticent too to step in the big shoes of Charlie Ryan.
Oh, and he thinks that, everybody thinks that of Charlie.
But at the same time, when you have the building inspector's license and you have the ability to do plan review, and we've given him an opportunity to learn,
yes.
I think he needs to push at this point.
Could we request them to do this? If he's done all the other ones, say, okay, it's time for you to take over all inspections except for new homes, and give him another year or 2 years on new homes.
Not inspections, but we're talking about.
Well, I know, the site plan, not inspection, but the site. If Charlie's saying that he's good to go on everything else but new homes, which is understandable, it's a little more complex, a little more to look out for. I mean,
I feel like he could, if he had probably 5 or 6 homes, and he had someone sitting with him on, he would probably get there.
but if he's getting the training elsewhere, we could tell him, that, I'm willing to do, I agree with Bob. That was their agreement when this all started. And it's getting to that point when we need to do something.
And I do know that Charlie had asked Chris if we were not going to require his services anywhere, let him know, because he was not going to renew his builder's license. Let me make some phone calls for next week or so. And then I will get on
He
his.
was at time plan too, when we discussed with him in 2018, I think he said 3 years.
That was the contract, it was 3 years. It was signed in February 2019.
Okay.
So 19.
But the other thing is, his building, Drew's building license, according to the stuff that Chris gave us, or I looked at, it's like for 3 years expiring in 2021. So I don't know if that means that you gotta go through.
I think you just have to recertify. I believe, I don't think it's.
Let me investigate. I mean, like I said, I kind of thought this is where you were going, but I wasn't sure, so I thought I would at least go through and have that information,
Sure.
But I would also, I agree with what you're saying about appreciating Charlie. That would be a good thing to do. So I will put this on next month's agenda. Okay? Okay, so then we have, we pulled off of the consent agenda, I believe, the July reports, Bob?
Let me just get them up here.
So
So, first one was the,
You had a building office adventure.
yeah, the building report, this goes to the building report. I guess that's what I was just bringing up, the fact that in July, there was some mention in the building report about township inspectors recommending deleting the line in charge of reopening a closed permit from 100/50, the mechanical, electrical, plumbing permit application, so that they'll have the authority to extend that permit. That would be only the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing, and not the building permit.
Correct.
Okay, so that answered that question on that. And the other report was July office manager's report, and I just want to bring it up, and that's the report that indicates that Chris is going to take off on the day that is the final day for collecting taxes. And I was upset because I was never a request was brought to my attention until this report came out. I know the personnel committee deals with this. I thought we discussed this a little bit before. I don't know if we ever made a decision, but I would like to see, we are such a small office, I'd like to see some type of policy put in place about that last day of taxes in September and the last day of taxes that we collect in February, that we have full office staff here. Because I know that from my understanding, that is a busy day. And I think that the clerk can indicate her experience with that. There's a lot of people coming in. I don't know how it's going to be now with the COVID situation, but quite frankly, I think that we should expect to have the entire staff there as opposed to vacation days. That's just my thoughts.
And I did, just so you know, totally respect your concern with this. And I did ask Lori if she felt that it was necessary to have 3 people. And she said that she felt for these particular taxes that they could probably manage the 2 people with the drop box. Maybe at the end of the year, it might be busier, the December taxes. And I guess as a personnel committee, that's something we would need to talk about. And I do remember bringing this up. It was prior to the December taxes because there was going to be a vacation, I think over Christmas time, is what it was. So, and I believe Vern and I also talked about it. And we said that what we remembered we would do is every year we would kind of see how you guys were with that. You know what I mean?
It depended too, like the December one, it had something to do how the holidays.
How the holidays stuff.
In that, so we figured that one there, you have to do it year by year, And with the drop box, hopefully that's what this is going to help out with. So I think, let's see how this drop box thing works. Maybe it'll solve our problems. I don't know. Or, kind of alleviate a lot of the pressure. So.
But I think maybe it would be a good idea to see how many walk-ins we have on that day.
Yeah.
Sure. To see how many, just so we get a feel for that. Anything else on those reports, Bob?
No, that's it.
Okay. So items for next agenda right now, we are going to discuss the plan review issue. Are there any other items for next agenda? None? Okay, we have call to the board. Chris, because we did refer to it, I'm going to start with you with the landscaping and then anything else you have to say.
Okay. I just want to start that Brandon was here tonight. He was here actually outside during the whole, we need to be comfortable and comfortable coming in with a crowded room, so they did end up going that home. We did want to explain to the board what he was going to do, and I'll briefly touch on it, but I was just texting with him before we here pretty loud. But any of the boards more than willing to give them a call and talking about the other questions. I do have to ask for the guidelines, safe guy to call me, and I put a speakerphone for him to talk to you, so listen to. But part of the Eagle Scout project, we wanted to redo the landscaping at the entrance of the township hall, so about the 3rd sidewalk joint across. Actually, if you notice it out there today, there's white lines painted across. You got a lesson called about 8 o'clock last night. Chris Overy, out of our main landscape block, is going to be here tomorrow installing the retaining wall. We did hire a contractor to put a 12-inch retaining wall And then over the next couple of weeks, he's going to be getting different scouts from around the county that he knows and made friends with over the years, and they're going to come together and help him complete the rest of the project. He's got a couple trees, he's got Black Eyed Susans, he's got hospice, and there's actually a sketch of the supervisor that you could refer to that shows more of that. It's going to include some landscape lighting, and kind of with Jeff, and that was at neon site. He's pretty excited about it. So kind of stressing out too, when we learn what it takes to organize something. Well, that's all quick ones that he raised. So that's no cost in the township, other than maybe let the boys do that from time to time, whether you're working.
And I do recall when we met with him, we had discussed that it, God bless your wife, you know, if it's hot, can the boys come in, of course.
Yeah.
You know, just for a little break.
And we'll have food and water where people can continue, and we've got all that stuff set up.
Yeah.
But it should, like I said, we're gonna start tomorrow, and his goal is to be done by September 1st. If not more sooner than that, so hopefully by the next board meeting, it will all be complete.
Okay, you have anything else? Anybody else on the board?
Two things. Did he check into how hard it is to maintain those trees?
Yes, and he can tell you all about that.
Okay.
I don't know much, I know there are a variation of dogwood. I know your traditional dogwood can get up to 25 feet, and you want something that was more of a dwarf tree. He's actually working with a lot of Kuzma with D&D plants, he was behind us on the track one there. He was on an order review for a little while, and it's just endless information when it comes to plants and trees, so him and Brandon were talking a lot about what would be a good fit here for maintenance, height, and he's trying to keep it as low maintenance as possible. The low being also be decorative stone, the weed barrier, and maybe a little bit of drainage using the gutter drains that are underground. He wants to tap into that, put little drains there to keep the water moving.
Great.
Yeah. Excited.
The only other question I have is, my deputy treasurer has asked if you want to do anything on the plastic.
Well,
she's got a lot of bags, we've got some stored in our storage room, and we would either like to give to somebody or...
Okay, well, let me check with my wife, because I know the Girl Scouts, I think they needed a few hundred more pounds to complete for their bench, and I know the program we track has to go through a nonprofit. So between any of the scouts and the school, the Lions Club, it's all nonprofit. So we could definitely take it and get it taken in and pound it or something. There will be two of those benches out here as well. So he raised 1,000 pounds of plastic. We got 2 truck benches. So
great.
These will run the base on campus. And then after the follow up with the drop box, the reason I asked about retiring the old drop box, because I know you might have some concern what to do with it. We're going to get it out of the building, how we're going to abandon it. We're going to get the idea of maybe his Eagle Scout plaque, measure the exact measurements of it.
Yeah, we talked about that. They were we said, well, how do we cover that up, you know, kind of thing, so people don't try to get in there.
Yeah.
And you're
So everybody knows,
not block out or anything like that. It's real.
It's a furry friend won't keep it red anymore.
Anything else from the board?
Yeah, a couple of things. First of all, our liquor inspection. He just wanted us to let him, he's doing the inspection, even though they were closed, you know, he's keeping up on that. He just hasn't brought them in because it's really nothing to do for him. He's not worried about the money, but they have been done. And so everything's going. And the library, we now get taxed for the library. Are they putting anything on our website or anything about events they're having or stuff they're doing at the library? To let people know. I mean, we're paying for it now, we don't know what's going on. Is there some way they can
Do
communicate?
you want them on our website?
I would think so.
And constant contact?
I would think.
Or you're gonna give us a link?
Yeah, give us a link, they got something on their city website, they should forward it to us too.
Okay, that's a great idea. Yeah, I'll do that, I'll take care of it. That's it?
Yeah.
Kathy? Bob, anything else?
No.
Okay, we're now at general public comment.
Mr. Murphy gets up, I think there's one other thing that we should discuss. We need to check on the SBA lease payment as to whether the next 5 years started now. Because we're still getting the same amount per month. So I need, if we got.
That sheet from Gordon that breakdown over the
I got the
years.
sheet, but I just can't, I don't know the person we need to contact. There was somebody that we contacted before. We got the records from SBA. But yeah, this, I think this is 20 years in. So
I will dig up any information I have on the file.
I think it should be around this time, it should be in the middle of the year.
We're still getting calls like crazy ones.
No, I'm not kidding,
We're not, yes, we're not in the market.
No.
All right, go ahead, I'm sorry about that. I'm sorry.
Melissa, you done, I'll speak.
Yes.
You right now, okay. I'm a Richmond stakeholder, being a taxpayer. Okay, in politics, transparency is used as a means of holding public officials accountable and fighting corruption. When a government meeting are open to the press and the public, its budgets may be reviewed by anyone, and its laws and decisions are open to discussion. It is seen as transparent. I see two examples where I believe that there was no transparency being exercised by the board. First one I want to talk about is purchasing land without any public discussion. And I got to take exception with Mr. Bob said, because you guys went in the back room and you had a secret meeting about the land, and you didn't want to tell anybody about it. I come back out here and talk about it. You had a budget meeting where you had to drop $50,000 capital expenditures because you didn't have the money to pay for it. You didn't know how much money state's going to pay in their share of revenue. So I, as a stakeholder, still don't know how we're going to pay $60,000 for land based on what I've seen so far this year. The next thing I saw, a special meeting of the Township Board was held on Monday, May 27th at 5 p.m. in a closed session to discuss contract negotiations. This session was closed to the public and was published, posted 5/26 by clerk of Richmond Township, Kathy LaFontaine. I did not pay attention to this meeting, but I read postings later about the Armada fire contract that was ending. Mr. Patrick told me this is a serious life-affecting issue needed to be debated and discussed with the Armada board instead of ignoring Richmond Township requests. The taxpayers of Richmond Township deserve to know the new risks to their families and homes. I think of, when I'm reading this to Mr. Patrick, that we have a fire here, somebody could die or we lose a house because we can't get the response time that they have, that they can give us. You offered $40,000, $50,000, whatever. They wanted, I think, $60,000. And further down here, they cannot find any support how their board came up with the $60,000 that you folks rejected. And I have two more paragraphs from Mr. Patrick that quite disturbed me that our lives are being at risk because we're not have the support of the Armada fire. Here, Wendy, the board sent a proposal to Richmond Township following the January meeting. Richmond Township sent a counter offer back on May 14th, and we had a meeting on May 19th. He had put on an agenda this one and found 4 of them voted to have it removed from the agenda and would not even allow discussion or debate on the contract of a public hearing. One more thing from Patrick. The sad part of this is that the board's failure to address it when Richmond made a counter offer forced them to expand the contract with Richmond City and Memphis. His biggest fear is that something Target will have to happen to bring Richmond Township back to the table to discuss the best emergency service practice.
Your time's almost up, Mr. Murphy. Pretty close.
I'm sorry?
Your time's almost up.
Oh, okay. But I find this pretty disturbing that I found out about this after you had your closed door meeting and you didn't want to tell anybody about it. I'm getting my time up.
Any other public comment? All right, hearing none, motion to adjourn is in order.
Move to adjourn.
Is there support?
Or.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion is carried.